Hello guys, welcome to Crunchy Tales. I am Gemma, your snack time movie companion. Today's movie is Predator Badlands. In the beginning of the story, we are shown a planet named Yautja Prime, which was considered the home of the most ruthless hunters in the universe. This planet had one rule: if you didn't kill those weaker than you, they would kill you. We see a Yautja named Dek, who had come to hunt his brother to prove to his father that he was not weak. Dek entered his cave, but his brother Vorkin was already lying in wait to ambush him. Every powerful Yautja can turn themselves invisible when necessary, but despite many attempts, Dek is unable to defeat his brother. Finally, Vorkan tells him to kneel before him, and when Dek refuses, Vorkan throws him into a ravine. He assumed Dek was dead and began to mourn his brother's death. However, Dek cheats death, climbs back up, and says, "Look, brother, I'm still alive." But Vorkan did not want to fight him anymore because he felt Dek wasn't ready. Vorkan doesn't kill his brother, but he knew if Dek stayed there, someone else surely would, so he tells him to go far away. He said, "To earn your place in the clan, you must kill someone more powerful than yourself. Come home only after killing them. If you can't, never return." Following this, he shows him several planets where he could go to hunt, but the condition was that he had to kill the most powerful creature there to return. From those planets, Dek chooses a planet named Gina, but Vorkan tells him to change his mind because that place was known as the Death Planet. Its most powerful creature was the Kalisk, whom no one could kill. Even their father feared it. But Dek said, "Then that is my prey. My father called me weak. To prove him wrong, I must kill the strongest." Vorkan was about to send Dek there when he saw a spaceship approaching them. Their father, Noir, the most ruthless hunter of the clan, disembarks from the ship. Dek welcomes his father by shedding his own blood in honor, but Noir is not at all happy to see him alive. He asks Vorkan why he hasn't finished his task yet, but Vorkan takes Dek's side, saying he is still new and deserves another chance at a hunt. However, Noir considered Dek a weakness to the clan, and in the Yautja species, the rule was to kill the weak. When he learns that Dek is going to hunt the Kalisk, he finds it foolish. He tells Vorkan, "You should have killed him while he was sleeping." Hearing these words from his father breaks Dek's heart. Noir takes him prisoner and tells his son to kill him. Vorkan draws his sword to finish him, but knowing his father is wrong, he refuses to kill his brother and instead throws him into the ship. Seeing this, Noir becomes furious. He turns invisible and launches several deadly attacks on his own son, severely wounding him. He said, "Siding with the weak is also a weakness." And saying just that, he brutally kills Vorkan by stabbing him in the back right in front of Dek's eyes. But before dying, Vorkan activated the ship, which took Dek billions of miles away where no one could find him. When Dek opened his eyes, he saw his spaceship was crashing. Before it hit the ground, Dek quickly separated from the ship in a pod. Meanwhile, a giant bird strikes his pod with great force, causing Dek to lose balance and crash straight into a forest. So much had happened to him in such a short time, but he still hadn't recovered from his brother's death. Dek realized he was on the Death Planet, the very planet he had chosen for his hunt. He wanted to fulfill the promise made to his brother so his sacrifice wouldn't go to waste. After this, he took out all his weapons and began preparing to kill the Kalisk. He suddenly heard a voice, and when Dek looked back, a living vine had vanished all his weapons. Sensing danger, Dek became instantly alert, but before he could do anything, those vines snatched another one of his weapons. Finally, after disarming him, the vines attacked him. Dek still had a sword and tried to defend himself, but the sword slipped away. Dek saw there were hundreds of such vines that he couldn't fight alone, so he fled. Once the forest ended, they stopped their attack, but now Dek had to move forward with great caution. He scans a leaf to check if it's poisonous and then applies it to his wound. There, he saw an insect he thought of eating, but as soon as Dek touched it, the insect started changing color. Dek quickly threw it away and discovered it was a living suicide bomb. Next, he came to an open field where animal bones lay scattered everywhere. His eyes fell on a plant with sharp thorns. Whenever he moved toward them, the thorns would point outward as if ready to kill him. While Dek was moving forward avoiding them, he heard a voice. He thought it was a threat, but upon closer look, he saw a girl there. She quickly downloads the Yautja language into her system so she can talk to him. She says, "My name is Thea, and I was created by the Wayland Corporation." Before she could say more, a large predatory bird started throwing stones at Dek. Thea tells him that once you are numbed by its venom and cannot move, it will eat you. Thea said, "I can help you, but I'm a bit helpless myself." But Dek didn't want her help. Meanwhile, the bird threw stones at him again. Dek tried to run, but this time he couldn't dodge those poisonous thorns. The venom immediately started taking effect, making Dek's body go numb. Before losing consciousness, it was necessary to kill that bird, otherwise it would eat him. He aimed at it with a blade, but unfortunately, his aim missed. His blade lay just a short distance from Thea, but his hand couldn't reach it. Meanwhile, the bird moved forward to prey on Dek, but before it could kill him, Thea attacked and killed it. She applied a medicine to Dek that neutralized the venom. Dek picked her up and saw that the lower half of her torso was missing. Thea tells him, "I am a synthetic robot sent here for research by Wayland Corporation, but the creatures of this planet reduced me to this state." Dek, tired of her chatter, threw her down and moved forward, but Thea needed him, so she asked him to stop. She said, "I know Yocha hunt the most powerful creatures of the planet, and you are looking for the Kalisk. But many Yocha came after the Kalisk before you, and none returned alive. If you take me with you, I will lead you to its cave, and you can become the first warrior to kill the Kalisk." Dek had no problem using her as a tool, so he picked her up and moved forward. After this, they passed through a cave where earthworms with sharp spikes lived. Dek considers them a threat, but Thea explains they aren't dangerous, they are just hungry. Carrying her in his hand was very difficult for Dek, so he broke some vines to make a rope and tied Thea's body tightly to his back. As they walked, night fell, and they decided to stop for a while because they didn't know which monster might be lying in wait in the dark. Dek asks, "How long have you been here?" To which Thea tells him that they landed on this planet 2 years ago. Their team's job was to understand and research the creatures of this planet. Dek learns about another synthetic android who was an exact replica of Thea. Both were made to work together, but Thea mostly stayed in the lab while Tessa's job was to gather data at the ground level. But one day, Tessa took her outside. They were exploring when the Kalisk attacked them and separated her legs. She becomes very emotional while telling her story, but Dek found her talk boring and fell asleep. Thea thought Tessa was dead, but that wasn't the case. In the next scene, we see Tessa, who was badly damaged. She's put into a repairing pod where some robots began processing her data. The company found out she hadn't completed her mission, after which Tessa is repaired again so she can be sent back on the mission she failed to complete. She is told that the company is not happy at all. If she fails again, she will be deactivated. Meanwhile, we see Thea going toward the Kalisk's cave with Dek. On the way, they saw a rhino-like monster grazing in the field. Thea tells him that this is the Kalisk's food, after which Dek thinks of killing it. But as he moved forward, he got a deep cut because the grass the rhino was standing in was made of sharp blades. He was thinking of a way to kill it when they saw a monkey-like creature watching them curiously with its large eyes. Mistaking them for hunters, those rhinos started running away in fear. But Dek didn't give up and chased it by swinging through the trees. Finally, Dek climbed onto its back, but before he could kill it, the rhino slammed him into a tree. That monkey was enjoying watching them, so Dek thought of dealing with it first. They were fighting when Dek saw the rhino charging fast toward him. Before it could trample them, Dek cut it into 2 pieces with a sword. He was celebrating his victory when a giant worm hidden in the woods caught them. It was about to swallow both of them when the monkey jumped into its mouth and broke its teeth with its strong armor. Their lives were saved, but now the worm was after the poor monkey's life. It was about to swallow it when Dek decided to help the poor creature because it had also saved their lives. With his sword, Dek launched several deadly attacks on it and finally killed it too. On the other side, we see Tessa, who had reached Dek's pod. There, those vines attack her too, but they had advanced weapons with which they finished them in seconds. Soon it was night and Dek began cooking and eating his prey. He gave some food to Thea too, but she ran on electricity. After this, he also gave some food to the monkey who had been following them for a while. The monkey was very happy to receive food and spat on Dek, which made Dek angry. He thought it was intentionally mocking him. But Thea explains that spitting is a sign of respect for them. By spitting on you, he has made you a part of his family. After this, Dek cleans the ground to sleep, and seeing him, the monkey also started cleaning the ground. In this way, it mimicked him exactly as if learning everything from him. A deep friendship had formed between Thea and the monkey, and she had even thought of a name for it, Pluto. Meanwhile, we see Tessa, who had found Dek's crashed spaceship. She went inside where she found the Yautja civilization's advanced weapons, which could be very useful for her in capturing the Kalisk. The next morning, Dek continues his journey without wasting time, but he didn't want to take Pluto with him. Thea says, "We can't leave him. He saved our lives." But he was of no use to Dek now, so he leaves him behind and moves forward. Soon Thea began to miss him. The poor thing had made them a part of his family, and they had left him alone. Dek asked Thea for the way forward, but she was still angry with him about Pluto, so she doesn't tell him. She says, "Granted, on your planet, empathy is considered a weakness, but this is not your planet. At least here you could have kept him with you." As an example, Thea tells him about the wolves of her planet, where the strongest wolf of the pack never bullies others with his power and always protects those weaker than himself. Dek understood her point, but he was still buried under the burden of his past. In such a situation, empathy could be an obstacle in his path. He soon reached the Kalisk's cave, where the corpses of those who had come to catch it were scattered all around. Thea also found her legs there, which she quickly took to a repairing station and synced herself with the lower part of her body. Thea says, "I have to tell you something. You must leave from here right now. I have called Tessa. The company will be here any moment." But Dek wasn't going anywhere without taking his trophy. Dek came out and saw that the Kalisk wasn't there, after which he blasted an oil container to call it. The Kalisk appears before Dek, and we see that it was way too big. It picked Dek up and threw him far away, giving him an idea of its strength. But this was just a small sample of its real power. Dek fought it and slit its stomach with his sword. If that wasn't enough, he even cuts off its tail. But the Kalisk had a unique power to repair itself. All its severed parts returned. Meanwhile, just as Thea was about to join her legs, the Kalisk picked Dek up and threw him onto her, breaking her body into two pieces again. Dek tried every possible way to stop it, but it seemed like it couldn't be killed. After this, he severed its head from its body with his sword. Dek thought he won, but the Kalisk reattached its head. It pinned Dek down with its feet and was about to kill him when it suddenly stopped. For some reason, it began to sniff Dek strangely and spared his life. However, the danger was not over yet. Soon, Tess and the company people arrived there and froze the Kalisk with a cryogenic bomb. Dek also got caught in the bomb and was frozen. When he regained consciousness, he was in Tessa's research lab. He asked Thea to release him, but he soon realized it wasn't Thea. Tessa scans him thoroughly and informs him that, from now on, you are the property of Wayland Corporation. Meanwhile, she reactivated Thea, and as soon as she woke up, she became emotional seeing Tessa. But then she saw Dek, whom Tessa had taken prisoner. She started a device that began scanning Dek's brain from the inside, but this scan was no less than torture. Seeing him in pain, Thea tells Tessa to stop, but when she didn't listen, Thea shut down the machine herself. Thea tries to explain that this Yautja is different. He saved my life, but Tessa reminds her what they were created for. They came here to research, but Thea says, it's not necessary that we become what they want. Right there, Tessa realizes that Thea has become corrupt. She said, "I didn't come here to save you, but to complete our mission." Hearing her words, Thea couldn't believe this was the same Tessa she considered her sister. After being repaired, she wasn't the same as before. Empathy for others had completely vanished from her. Tessa ordered the guards to break her and throw her in the trash and left. Thea tells Dek to do something, but just then, a guard arrived and saw that Thea was talking to the Yautja in his language. He picked up a device from there and began examining it closely. Dek said, "Tell him that this is a map." After which Thea did exactly that. As soon as the guard pressed a button on it, an explosion occurred. Before the guards could catch them, Thea quickly opened the door and Dek escaped. Evading them, he falls into a waterfall many feet deep. Thinking him dead, they didn't even try to find him. But we see that Dek survived even after falling from such a height. He was badly injured, but somehow he returned to his ship. He was very ashamed that he didn't live up to his brother's expectations. He started the ship and thought of going elsewhere, but then he remembered something Thea said about the wolf. Dek understood what he had to do now. Tessa had seized all his weapons, so he decided he would use this planet against them. After this, Dek went to the field and collected a lot of blade grass. He caught that exploding insect and wrapped it in a leaf, which was going to act as a grenade for him. From the teeth of the rhino he had hunted, he made a sharp dagger. In this way, he turned the numbing plant and those earthworms into his weapons, the same ones that had once tried to kill him. He didn't know where they had taken the Kalisk, so in search of a clue, Deck comes back to the same cave where their last fight took place. But unfortunately, he found no one there because everyone had left. He was about to leave when his eyes fell on Pluto, who had reached there searching for them. Deck saw that he looked very distressed, and then his eyes fell on the Kalisk's footprints on which Pluto was standing and crying. Deck immediately understands that the one they were considering a mere monkey all this time was actually the Kalisk's daughter who had been separated from her. Deck immediately spat on her and made her part of his family too. Meanwhile, they saw Thea's legs buried under debris. Deck pulls them out, after which those legs started leading them toward Tessa's base. On the other side, we see Thea, whose body they were about to dispose of. A guard was monitoring her, but then Deck throws acid on him, melting him away. Once the path was clear, Thea's legs started going toward her body, and whoever tried to stop them in between, Deck finished them off. Pluto was also helping him in this task, but they were soon caught. Meanwhile, Tessa was preparing to leave with the Kalisk. The company asked her about the status of the Yautja, to which Tessa lied, saying he was dead. Deck was finishing those robots one by one. One tried to sound the safety alarm, but Deck didn't let him do so because he still needed a little more time. Meanwhile, Thea's legs reached her. Thea was very happy to get her legs back when more guards arrived, so they pretended to be deactivated again. The guards were looking at Thea when her leg attacked them from behind, and both worked as a team to take down all the robots. Deck moved forward to stop them, but then a guard pointed a gun at his head and said, "If you move, I'll blow your skull off." But then Thea arrived and saved him. She asked, "What are you doing here?" But when Thea found out he had come here to save her, she couldn't believe her eyes. Thea said, "Before more people come here, we have to get out of here." But Deck says, "Not yet. We can't leave without the Kalisk. They have captured Pluto's mother." Upon learning the truth, Thea also agrees to help him, after which Deck sounded the security alarm calling everyone to him. He sat on his knees, waiting for them, and soon a whole unit of guards surrounded him. They were moving toward him to kill him when Deck played his move and cut them all to pieces with that numbing plant. Now only Tessa was left, but Deck didn't have to find her because she came to him herself. Equipped with Yautja weapons, she was wearing mechanical armor. She aimed at Deck, but as soon as she pulled the trigger, that earthworm came in front of Deck to save his life and was killed. Seeing it dying before his eyes, Deck went out of control with rage and attacked her like a madman. He launched many attacks on her, but Tessa picked him up and threw him away. Meanwhile, Thea tries to release the Kalisk with her ID, but she had been blacklisted. A guard saw her doing this, but Thea quickly changed her eyes to become Tessa and ordered him to go elsewhere and monitor. But all this was of no use because her trick was caught. On the other side, Tessa began to overpower Deck. To save his life, he hid behind a truck, and while Tessa was busy looking for him, Deck suddenly attacked her. He was about to sever her head when Tessa hid under a shield that Deck couldn't break even if he wanted to. Meanwhile, the Kalisk also attacks her. A fierce fight ensued between the two, but Tessa started cutting the Kalisk in half with a plate. The Kalisk was becoming weak against her, but Deck broke the wiring of the mechanical suit, causing the blade to stop mid-action. Without delay, Tessa throws that cryogenic bomb at the Kalisk once again to freeze it, but this time, Deck deflects the bomb, which hit Tessa's mechanical suit directly. The Kalisk breaks her hand and throws it away. She was about to rip through her suit and kill her when Tessa started aiming at her with her laser, but before she could launch the final attack on the Kalisk swallowed her alive. Pluto meets her mother for the first time, and the Kalisk was also very happy to get her lost daughter back. It seemed like this was the happy ending of the story, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The Kalisk suddenly started having intense pain, and cold steam began coming out of its mouth. Before they could understand anything, the Kalisk's entire body froze, and then a loud explosion occurred in which its body was shattered into thousands of pieces. Pluto sees that their body was not healing itself. She understands that she is now gone from this world forever. We see Tessa, who was still alive. She hated Thea the most because her own sister had betrayed her. She points a laser at Thea to finish her, but before she could kill her, Deck killed her by thrusting a rod into her neck. Pluto was very angry at Tessa, but Deck explained to her that she was gone now. After this, Deck returns to his planet. His father thought he had come here for revenge, but Deck threw Tessa's head toward him and said that he had completed his hunt. Now he wanted his cloak back, the invisibility technology given only to great warriors. But his father still considered him a coward and a fugitive who had brought shame to his clan. He refused to give Deck the cloak and ordered his people to finish him. As his guards moved forward to kill Deck, Deck took them down, then and there, and challenged his father to a fight. After this, a fierce fight breaks out between the two, and his father shows no mercy to Deck. But this time, Deck wasn't going to back down either. He fought him and wounded him severely. Seeing his fighting ability, his father turned himself invisible, but Deck had come prepared for this. He started the ship, and from the rising dust, he found their position. That was it. Deck launched several deadly attacks on him and finally cut off his hand and threw it away. He brought his father to his knees and removed his helmet because he was no longer the most powerful warrior. His father agreed to give him a place in his clan in exchange for sparing his life, but Deck held him responsible for his brother's death and said, "Now I don't need any clan." Just then, Pluto chewed off his father's head, and we see that he had become much larger and more powerful than before. The three of them together formed their own separate clan where the rules of Yautja Prime were not followed. Instead, they lived like a pack of wolves. Finally, we are shown Deck's mother, who had just returned from another planet. Seeing her, everyone drew their swords, and with this, the story ends here.